This is John Young with the Disc Jockey News, and I have my good friend Ken Day with me here today. Ken, one of the things that we've talked about, like Conclave and different things, is this whole trend of DJs really getting into officiating and doing some things with that. Now you've been doing that for quite a while.
A little over 7 years.
Holy cats! Holy cats! So, kind of for those who are interested, let's just start at the basics. What officiating in the DJ world, what's involved to get started in something like that?
Well, a lot of it is really, of course, you can go 4 to 6 years through seminary, get traditionally ordained, pay for all that college time. Most everywhere in the country, you can go online to Universal Life Church, and there's some other ones, but Universal Life Church is probably the biggest one. Spend 5 minutes, pay $39, and you are ordained to be recognized most places. The benefit for DJs is that when you're meeting with your couples, you can let them know, I am ordained. And just in case your officiant is super late or something happens or just doesn't show up for one reason or another, you can legally step in and perform the ceremony. So one thing I had always done when I was just on the DJ role, being ordained, I would always ask the officiant, can I get a copy of the ceremony just to have in case, not to share with the bride and groom, just to have it just in case. Inevitably they would send it to me and I could have that. Sometimes it was just going through the order during the rehearsal, and then actually if need be, would utilize that for the ceremony if something happened. In all that time, I never really had to do that. Prior, I had a couple of times we had issues with the officiant, and everybody's scrambling trying to find somebody to perform the ceremony so the day wasn't ruined. That was always very stressful for everyone. And after being ordained and being able to step in and do that, it was a lot better process because you could just step in.
Sure.
And that peace of mind for the bride and groom really made the difference. So that definitely helped for the DJ business. Just letting them know you were more to them and more valuable to them than just the DJ.
Sure. So now a person is ordained, and as you're talking, the stepping in, how much work is it to put together that ceremony? I mean, if you're getting a script from someone, you have to step in, that's one thing. But now if it's yours, they're hiring you. What's involved with putting that together?
It's pretty extensive, and you have to do a lot of research, and there are the variables for all the different religious elements, if they even want any religious elements involved, and then trying to structure it so it's long enough. I always try to make mine at least 20 minutes long, no longer than 35 minutes long. Less than 20, guests feel slighted. Longer than 35, they're wondering when it's going to be over. So that's kind of a sweet spot for the ceremony, and I've actually created a formula for creating based on the print text and the number of pages to make it right at about 21 minutes based on that, and then I can extend as need be for if they want to incorporate different elements. So creating that takes a lot, and my approach is very different from the standard officiant. Coming from the DJ world, I understand effective showmanship. Not showing up the bride and groom, but creating an environment that is more meaningful. The family and friends feel like they're participating in a ceremony, at least emotionally, if not physically, and not just observing it or waiting for it to be over so they can get to the party. So there are a lot of ways you can do that, but I put together an entire program to really solidify those elements and getting to know the couples. So
and I can see where that would be helpful, because I actually performed a couple of renewal where they renewed their vows, and in one where they were actually married the night before, and we did it out at a remote location. And finding the information, I mean, that was tough. And I would, not that I was ordained or anything, but just to find the script and some outlines, that's not really out there.
And the ones that are out there is the same thing that most officiants are doing, is they're taking their idea of personalizing a ceremony is, these are the 2 or 3 ceremonies I do. which one would you like your name
A,
plugged
B, or
into?
C. Yeah.
Right, so that's really not personalizing. For me, we start from scratch. I give them a ton of homework. Inevitably, I'll have one side of the family or guests come up to me and ask me how I'm related to one or the other.
Nice.
Which is really great.
Yes.
And then for those that understand that I was hired for that, they'll come up and let me know that the ceremony was so perfectly the bride and groom.
Well,
So their personality and style, and that's what I strive for, and I've really developed this program to be able to do that.
Cool.
So
Cool. So when you're talking about the program now, you mentioned you have it's on a disc.
it's on a disc. It's a host of information that takes all this research that I've done over the years and coming up with these formulas to create meaningful, sentimental, lighthearted, depending on the couple.
Right.
So it really suits them and their personality and style. And the way I structure the ceremony, it genuinely is not about me.
Right.
Just one example of that is me not staying in the traditional position. I'll start there and then I move.
Right.
There's nothing to say you can't. Their photos look great. They look great. Photographer doesn't have to try to crop you out. You don't have a silly look on your face inadvertently when they're doing their first kiss or
Precisely. And that's a big one. I've never understood why it's always bride and groom and right there when, especially the one location we did at Itasca State Park, if you're familiar with that, headwaters of the Mississippi, beautiful wooded area, and the backdrop was over the lake and the trees. It was a typical, pastor would have been bridegroom, that, and then the beauty behind, and you would have had him in the picture.
Right.
And I think that's where our DJ, our staging and wanting to give the bride and groom, make them the stars, not
make
us.
them the focus.
Make
Right.
them the focus really comes out. So little tips like that. I mean, that's gold. The bride and groom that I work for, they've shared that picture of them up there doing the rings in front of in the lake, because they would have never gotten that shot. So
Right.
experience teaches
Well,
us
and
a lot.
that's a DJ experience, and the great thing is you'll talk. We as DJs have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of officiants. The good, the bad, the really ugly. There's some pretty bad ones, and there are some good ones. But you can take those elements. But 99.9% of officiants stay in that traditional position, and there's so many elements for us as entertainers that we can employ and really make a dynamic ceremony. The great thing is that because of how we do things, it means that we know there can be variables. There's not just one way to do it. So based on my conversations with couples and things like that, you can change things up. And the funny thing is if you talk to 5 officiants and ask them how many other officiants they've seen perform a ceremony, usually
1 or 2,
1, 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky. But talk to a DJ that it's their benefit to get ordained. How many officiants have you seen?
Oh yeah.
And so you can employ a lot of that information into how you perform. So it's really beneficial.
So now in your little packet that you put together, you've got some scripts, some sample scripts.
Sample scripts, the questionnaire for the bride, the questionnaire for the groom. I keep them separate. I don't want them reading each other's answers. I never share the ceremony with the bride and groom in its entirety, because I don't want them just standing up there critiquing. Is that the next thing he was supposed to say?
Right. Yeah.
We want everyone listening, the guests and the bride and groom, wedding party, listening for the moment. Listening for the information, the words, the meaning. It works a lot better that way.
I can imagine.
So those questionnaires are in there. Some of the legal aspects. You mentioned you did a ceremony for a couple that was actually married the night before. Well, a legal ramification that most people really don't think about when you're doing a ceremony for a couple that is actually already married. Well, if they haven't told any of their family and you perform that, you've set yourself up for the potential in our litigious society to be sued because you misrepresented to the family and friends that you were performing their actual ceremony. So there's a simple form in this package that you have the bride and groom sign saying that they know they're already married and that this is just a celebration of their wedding.
And that's exactly what the bride and groom, in the case of what I did, is they wanted to make sure that everybody knew they were married the night before at the courthouse, but this was a exchanging of the ring celebration is what they referred to it as, and it worked well.
And in my market, very often military couples, they'll get married just so they can have all those benefits in place, and later when it's more convenient, they can have the celebration ceremony.
Nice. So. Now you mentioned earlier, and this is where the religious, it used to be in our parents' generation,
right?
Everything was done in the church, and now things are changing with that. What have you found out with some of the couples when it comes to some of the religious components of the ceremony?
Right. Most of the couples that come to me, they're not heavily religious. They might or might not attend church. Their parents usually are the ones, and we discuss that. How much they would like to incorporate into their ceremony to make their parents happy and comfortable, yet not taking away from what their beliefs are as a couple. So we go through those different aspects, and again, in the questionnaire, those elements are discussed, so that we can figure out what is going to be best for that.
Right.
The prime example is I had a bride that her mother was a devout and devoted and very much a church-going Catholic mom. And she was upset that they were getting married in a church that was no longer active, and they weren't being married by a priest. Yet the bride and the groom were not very religious, but they wanted to accommodate mom to some degree. With my background and experience, I was able to tell her, we're going to do a brief blessing at the beginning of the ceremony that will bless the marriage. It'll kind of be innocuous. She did not want to have the mention of Jesus Christ or God, but we could kind of allude to that. So the simple solution, and it's really kind of funny, and all the Catholics will understand this, is that I would say at the beginning, I started with, we're going to have a blessing for this marriage. May the Lord be with you. And all the Catholics responded with, and also with you. So that was a gratifying element for our mom. And then afterwards, she said it was a perfect wedding ceremony, and that it really suited their personalities, and it was great. So, little things like that can really make a big difference. So it's just knowing what avenue to take to satisfy. But back to your original question is, most of the couples that come to me that aren't church affiliated really don't want any religious aspects in their ceremony, but they still want it to be meaningful. Occasionally they want small little elements here and there, but most of the time they just kind of want a middle of the road, not very religious, but very meaningful to them, and will have some meaning to their guests. And the way I approach a ceremony is, it's their public expression of love and commitment for each other, but everyone there are people they invited. They know the couple, they know their personalities, and they kind of expect something of their personalities to come through. So that's what I strive to garner from them in meetings, to figure out how we're going to facilitate that.
Very neat, very neat. If someone wants to order the set of the discs of information, where would they go, or how would they get a hold of you?
They can shoot me an email at info@kennethdayweddings.com, and that's plural. So info kennethdayweddings.com.
And if that doesn't work, you can always send an email to kenday@discjockeynews.com, because of course Ken Day is also one of our video correspondents covering different DJ events
here and there
around the Southwest. So thank you, Ken. Thanks for coming in and talking about the whole concept of doing officiating at weddings.
And there's so much more. Get a hold of me. I'm happy to share.
Sounds great. Thank you much. Thanks. This is John Young with the Disc Jockey News.